At Christmas dinner, my son David poured a full glass of red wine down the front of my white shirt, while his wife and her family laughed. He called me a burden, said I embarrassed them. I didn't yell, didn't curse. I just reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a folded document, and placed it on the table between the roasted duck and the crystal stemware. Then I said 5 words that made every face in that room go pale. Read it. All of it. That deed represented 23 years of mortgage payments. And what I did next changed everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The wine was cold against my chest. Expensive, too. A 2015 Bordeaux that Martha and I had bought on our last trip to France before the cancer. David knew that. He'd helped us carry the case up from the cellar that final summer. Now he was pouring it on me like I was a stain he needed to cover up. His wife Jennifer didn't even try to hide her smile. Her parents, Gerald and Patricia Whitmore, sat at the head of my dining table in my house, eating food I'd paid for and pretended not to notice. Patricia actually looked at her phone. "Dad's had too much to drink," David announced to the table. "He gets confused, emotional. I'd had half a glass. One. But I didn't argue. I pressed my napkin against the spreading stain and felt the wine soak through to my skin. Cold. Then warm. Then just wet. "Maybe you should head home," Jennifer said sweetly. "We'll pack you a plate." Home. She said it like I was a guest. Like the house we were sitting in wasn't the one I'd bought in 1987 with Martha's teaching salary and my work at the plant. The house where we'd raised David in the bedroom upstairs, with the crooked closet door I'd never managed to hang quite right. Gerald cleared his throat. "David, perhaps your father would be more comfortable. He'll be fine." David cut him off. "Won't you, Dad? You're fine." It wasn't a question. It was an instruction. I looked at my son across the table. 41 years old. Executive director at Whitmore Investments, his father-in-law's firm. 200,000 a year salary. Company car. Country club membership. All of it courtesy of marrying Jennifer 3 years ago after his marketing career stalled out. The same son I'd put through Penn State. 47,000 in tuition and room and board. The same son whose wedding I'd paid 18,000 for because Jennifer's parents said they'd only contribute if it was their kind of venue. The same son who'd needed 12,000 last year when his car lease deal fell through. "I'm fine," I finally said. "Just clumsy. My fault." Jennifer's smile widened. Victory. She'd been pushing for this since Thanksgiving. I'd heard her on the phone with her mother 2 weeks ago when I'd come by to drop off the Christmas gifts. I wasn't supposed to be there. David had told me to come at 4. I'd arrived at 3:30. "He just shows up whenever he wants," Jennifer had been saying. "Like he still owns the place." "It's embarrassing, Mother," Gerald agrees. "We can't have clients over with him wandering through in his undershirts." I'd left the gifts on the porch, driven home, said nothing. Now David was standing. "Actually, Dad, since you brought it up, Jennifer, and I've been meaning to talk to you about something." The room got quiet. Even Patricia put down her phone. "We've been thinking it's time for you to consider other living arrangements," David said. He sounded like he was reading from a script. Probably was. Jennifer had that look. The one Martha used to call her planning face. "You're 68 now. This house is too much for you. The stairs, the yard. It's not safe." "I manage fine," I said. "You fell last month," Jennifer added. "David told me. On the ice. I'd slipped on the front steps, caught myself on the railing. Not even a bruise. But David had seen it when he'd stopped by for I couldn't even remember why he'd been there. To borrow something, probably. There are excellent facilities, Gerald said. Patricia and I toured several when her mother needed care. Very dignified. Activities, nurses on staff. I don't need nurses, I said. I need my house. It's not about what you need, Dad. It's about what's realistic. David leaned back in his chair. Martha's chair. The one with the embroidered cushion she'd made the year we moved in. Face it, you're alone here. You rattle around in 4 bedrooms by yourself. It's depressing. I like it here. Well, we don't like worrying about you. Jennifer's voice had that edge now, the patience wearing thin. And frankly, Tom, this house is wasted on one person. David and I have been talking about expanding, starting a family. We'd need more space than the townhouse. There it was. The truth sliding out from under the concern. You want my house, I said. We want you to be taken care of, David corrected. And yes, it would make sense for us to take over the property. You'd be provided for. We'd handle everything. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or bills or any of it. I see. We've already looked into a few places, Jennifer continued. She pulled out her phone, started swiping. There's a lovely community in Fletcher, 20 minutes away. They have movie nights, a pool. You'd make friends. I have friends. You have Bob Martelli, who comes by to watch football twice a month. David said, That's not a social life, Dad. That's hanging on to the past. Bob and I had worked together for 33 years. He'd held Martha's hand at the funeral when David had been too busy checking his phone outside the chapel. But I didn't say that. I just watched my son talk about my life like it was a problem he needed to solve. The house has equity, Gerald added. Substantial equity. In this market, you're sitting on a gold mine. We could structure it so you'd have income from the sale. Very comfortable income. Or, Jennifer said brightly, we could arrange a transfer. Family transfer. Keep it simple. You wouldn't have to deal with realtors or staging or any of that mess. David's your only child. It all goes to him eventually anyway, right? Why wait? Why wait? Like I was already dead. Just taking up space until the paperwork caught up, I thought about Martha, about how she'd warned me 2 years before she died, when David had started missing Sunday dinners, when the calls got shorter, when he'd stopped asking how I was doing and only called when he needed something. Don't give him so much that he forgets what you sacrificed, she'd said one night. We'd been in bed. Her skin was paper thin by then. The chemo had taken almost everything. Make him remember what love costs. I'd told her she was being too hard on him, that he was busy, that he'd come around. She'd just looked at me with those tired eyes and said, I hope you're right, but keep the deed in your name, Tom. Promise me. I'd promised, but I hadn't understood. Not then. What do you think, Dad? David was asking now. Make sense? The wine stain had stopped spreading. It sat on my chest like a badge. Evidence. I stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor. I'd refinished myself in 2003. Every board laid by my own hands over 6 weekends. Martha had brought me sandwiches while I worked. I think, I said slowly, that you should read this. I pulled the document from my jacket pocket. I'd brought it with me tonight. Not because I'd planned this, but because I'd known. Something in me had known this was coming, the way animals know about earthquakes before they hit instinct. I unfolded it on the table, placed it right in the center, right between David and Jennifer. It was the deed to the house, but it wasn't just that. Clipped to it were 3 other documents: a property appraisal from last month, a statement from my lawyer, and a letter handwritten, Martha's handwriting. What is this? Jennifer asked. But her voice had changed. Uncertain now. That's the deed to this house, I said. Current market value, $478,000. Appraised 3 weeks ago. Mortgage paid in full as of 2009. Solely in my name. Martha insisted on that. David was reading now. Really reading. His face had gone pale. The second document is a legal statement confirming my mental competency. Signed by Dr. Morrison last week. No dementia. No confusion. No impairment of judgment whatsoever. I kept my voice level. Calm. The way Martha always said I should when I was angry. Don't yell, Tom. That's when they stop listening. Dad, what are you? The third document is a letter your mother wrote to me before she died. She made me promise to read it if you ever tried to take this house from me. Would you like me to read it aloud? Or would you prefer to do it yourself? Silence. Complete silence. Even the heating system seemed to stop humming. Jennifer's hand was on David's arm, squeezing. Gerald had put down his fork. She knew, I said quietly. Martha knew. She saw it coming 3 years before she died. The way you stopped visiting, the way you only called when you needed money, the way you looked at her medical bills like they were a burden on your inheritance. That's not fair, David started. She wrote it all down, David. Dates, conversations. The time you told her she should just stop treatment because she was going to die anyway. Remember that? August 14th, 2014. She came home from chemo and you were in our kitchen. You said the treatments were selfish, that she was draining money we didn't have, that I'd need that money to live on. Jennifer's face was white now. She hadn't known. David had never told her. She had 6 months left. I continued. 6 months. And you wanted her to give up so you could inherit a paid-off house faster. I was trying to be realistic, David said. But his voice cracked. You were 29. You were scared. I forgave you for it. She forgave you for it. But she also remembered. And she made me promise that if you ever came at me like this, treating me like I was already dead, like I was just in the way, I'd show you what you were really asking for. I picked up the letter. Martha's handwriting, shaky from the medication, but still hers, still fierce. My darling Tom, I read. If you're reading this to David, it means I was right. It means our son has become the kind of man who values property over people, who sees his father as an obstacle instead of a blessing. I don't write this with anger. I write it with grief. Because I raised him better. We raised him better. But somewhere along the way, he forgot what we taught him about family, about sacrifice, about love that doesn't come with a price tag. My voice caught. I stopped, breathed. Tell him, I continued, that the house he wants so badly was bought with money we could have spent traveling, on vacations we never took, on the retirement we always planned but never got to live. Tell him we chose his college fund over our dreams. Tell him we chose his wedding over our kitchen renovation. Tell him we chose him over and over and over. And then ask him, what did he choose? What did he sacrifice? What did he give up for love? I folded the letter, placed it back on the table. Your mother wanted you to understand something, David. This house isn't just property. It's every choice we made. Every hour I worked overtime at the plant while you played soccer. Every dinner we ate at home instead of restaurants so we could save for your braces. Every sacrifice we made without telling you because we wanted you to feel secure, to feel loved without conditions. The wine stain on my shirt had started to dry, stiff now, permanent probably. You poured wine on that tonight, I said. On 23 years of mortgage payments. On Martha's dream kitchen that she died before we could remodel. On memories you don't even know about because you stopped asking. You poured wine on your mother's sacrifice and called it a joke. Dad, I didn't mean, read the fourth document, I said. David's hands were shaking as he pulled the final paper from the clip. It was dated yesterday. Notarized. What is this? He whispered. That's a deed transfer, I said. To the Pine Valley Land Trust. Effective immediately upon my death, this house becomes part of a conservation property. It will be demolished. The land will return to wetlands, native species restoration, educational facility. Everything your mother loved about this property before we built on it. Jennifer made a sound. Small. Choked. You can't, she said. I can. I did. Yesterday, at 3:17 in the afternoon at Frank Morrison's law office. Witnessed, filed, irrevocable. But we're your family, David said. I'm your son. Yes, I said. You are. And when you were born, I made a promise to love you unconditionally. I kept that promise. When you were 6 and broke the neighbor's window playing baseball, I paid for it. Didn't make you feel guilty. When you were 16 and wrecked my truck, I told you accidents happen. When you were 23 and lost your first job and needed a place to stay, I gave you the guest room for 8 months. Didn't charge you rent. Didn't make you feel small. That's what fathers do. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. But love without respect isn't love, David. It's just enabling. Your mother knew that. She tried to teach you. I tried to teach you. But you never learned. You learned that I'd always say yes. That I'd always give in. That I'd always prioritize your comfort over my dignity. So what? You're punishing me? David's voice was rising now. Anger replacing shock. Because I wanted you to be safe? Because I worried about you living alone? No, I said. I'm teaching you. The same lesson your mother tried to teach you before she died. That the people who love you aren't resources to be managed. They're not problems to be solved. They're not obstacles between you and what you want. I headed for the door. My coat was in the closet. The same closet I'd built when we'd moved in. Cedar-lined. Martha had insisted. She'd been right. The coat still smelled fresh. Where are you going? Jennifer asked. Home, I said. To my home. The one I'm going to live in until I die. However long that takes. And then it's going to become a wetland again. A place for herons and turtles and wild irises. The way Martha wanted. The way it should be. Dad, wait. David was standing now. Can we talk about this? We just did, I said. Merry Christmas, son. There's pie in the kitchen if you want it. Pumpkin. Your mother's recipe. I made it this morning. I walked out. Got in my truck. The engine was cold. Took 3 tries to turn over. The whole time, I could see them through the dining room window. David standing. Jennifer pacing. Gerald and Patricia looking at each other like they'd just witnessed a car accident. The drive home was 4 miles. I'd made it thousands of times. Tonight it felt longer. The wine stain had soaked through to my undershirt. I'd have to soak it. White vinegar and cold water. Martha had taught me that. When I got home, the house was dark. I'd left the porch light on, but the bulb must have burned out. I made a mental note to replace it tomorrow. The front door stuck like it always did in cold weather. I'd been meaning to plane it down for 3 years. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The TV remote on the coffee table. Martha's reading glasses still on the end table by her chair even though she'd been gone 6 years. The Afghan her mother had crocheted draped over the couch back. Home. My home. Our home. I made coffee. strong, the way Martha hated and I loved. Sat at the kitchen table in the same chair I'd sat in for 37 years. The wine-stained shirt was in the laundry room now. I'd put on one of my old work flannels, soft from 1,000 washings. The phone started ringing at 8:15. David. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 8:23. Again at 8:37. By 9 o'clock, I'd gotten 11 calls. I turned the ringer off. The voicemails started piling up. I listened to the first 3. Dad, this is insane. Call me back. We need to talk about this. You can't just give away the house to spite me. That's crazy. Mom wouldn't want this. Fine, don't answer. But you need to know. Jennifer's lawyer father thinks you might not be competent to make these decisions. We might need to pursue guardianship. For your own good. I deleted them all. Made more coffee. Sat in the dark kitchen and thought about Martha. She'd known. 3 years before she died, she'd known exactly how this would play out. The same way she'd known it would rain on our wedding day. The same way she'd known David would be a boy before the ultrasound confirmed it. The same way she'd known her cancer was back before the doctors found it. You see patterns, she used to say. I see people. She'd seen David clearly. Seen the entitlement growing. The way he'd started valuing things over relationships. The way he'd started measuring love by what it could get him instead of what it cost. And she'd prepared me. The letter had been just one part of it. There'd been others, conversations. Late at night when the pain was too much for her to sleep. She'd lie there in the dark and talk. When I'm gone, he'll try to make you small, she'd said once. He'll try to make you feel like you're the problem. Like wanting to stay in your own home is selfish. Like having needs is a burden. He wouldn't? I'd protested. He will, not because he's cruel, because he's afraid. Afraid of being responsible. Afraid of sacrifice. Afraid of becoming us. What do I? To do? You stand your ground. You show him what we built, and you make him choose, really choose, between what he wants and who he wants to be. That's what tonight was, a choice. I'd laid it out clearly. The house or me, the inheritance or the relationship. He couldn't have both, not anymore. The clock in the living room chimed midnight. Christmas was over. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, went upstairs. In the bedroom, Martha's side of the closet was still full of her clothes. I'd tried to clean it out twice, made it through 2 dresses before I had to stop. Now I just left it. Sometimes I opened the door and stood there. Her scent was almost gone. But if I pressed my face into the sweaters on the bottom shelf, I could still catch traces. Lavender and something else. Something uniquely her. I didn't sleep much. Kept thinking about David's face when he'd read the letter. The shock. The betrayal. Like I'd wounded him. Like I was the one who'd done something unforgivable. Maybe I had. Maybe taking away his inheritance was cruel. Maybe Martha would have handled it differently. But Martha wasn't here. And I was tired. Tired of making myself smaller. Tired of apologizing for taking up space. Tired of being treated like I was already dead just because I was getting old. The phone started ringing again at 6 in the morning. I ignored it. Made breakfast. Eggs and toast. Ate at the kitchen table reading yesterday's newspaper. The crossword was half done. I'd been working on it for 3 days. Got stuck on 17 across. 5-letter word for betrayal. Trust. Didn't fit. Cheat. Too obvious. It was snowing when I looked out the window. Big flakes. The kind that stick. The driveway would need clearing by afternoon. I had the snowblower in the garage. Needed oil, but it would run. The doorbell rang at 8:30. I knew who it was before I opened it. David stood on the porch. No coat, just a sweater. His car was running in the driveway. Jennifer sat in the passenger seat, watching. "Can I come in?" he asked. "It's cold," I said. "Come in." He stepped inside, looked around like he'd never seen the place before. Maybe he hadn't. Not really. Not the way it actually was. He'd always been looking past it, planning what he'd change, how he'd renovate, what it would be worth. "Coffee?" I offered. "No." "Thanks." He stood in the entryway, awkward. "Dad, about last night. You don't need to apologize," I said. "You said what you wanted. I showed you what I'd decided. That's it. But the house, the conservation thing, you can't actually mean that." "I do." "Why? To hurt me?" "No. To save it. To make it mean something beyond property value." I walked into the kitchen. He followed. "Your mother loved this land. Before we built here, it was marsh, cattails, ducks. She used to come out here and just sit, watch the seasons change. She cried when we poured the foundation." "I didn't know that." "No, you wouldn't. You were 3. But I knew, and I promised her that someday, if we could, we'd give it back, return it to what it was." She made me promise. David sat down at the table, heavily, like he'd been standing too long. "Jennifer's furious," he said. "I imagine so. Her parents think they think you're not well. That maybe the grief has, that maybe you're not thinking clearly." "I got a competency evaluation 3 weeks ago," I said. "From Dr. Morrison, from Dr. Patel at County General, from a psychiatrist Jennifer's father recommended. Actually, Gerald sent me his name. Thought I might need someone to talk to. I went, got evaluated, passed everything. I'm sad, David. I'm lonely sometimes. But I'm not incompetent. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I'm doing." He put his head in his hands. "I don't understand. I just wanted you to be safe." "No," I said quietly. "You wanted me to be out of the way. You wanted this house. You wanted to stop worrying about me. Those aren't the same thing as wanting me safe. That's not fair, isn't it? Be honest. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Not how's the house or do you need anything. How am I? How am I handling Martha being gone? How am I filling my days? What am I thinking about? What do I miss? When did you last ask me those things?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. "That's what I thought," I said. "You see me as a responsibility, an obligation, not a person. Not your father who still has thoughts and feelings and a life to live. Just someone you have to manage until I die and you can move on." "That's not true." "Then tell me something about my life. Right now. Tell me one thing I've done in the last month. One thing I care about. One friend I see. One hobby I have. One anything." He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "You watch football with Bob. That's your answer? Something that happened every week for 30 years? Nothing current, nothing personal, nothing that shows you've actually paid attention to who I am now, today, after Martha." "I'm busy, Dad. I have a job, a wife, responsibilities." "So did I. So do I. But I still made time to know you, to know what mattered to you, to show up for your life. That's what parents do. What family does." He was quiet for a long time. Outside, the snow was getting heavier. Jennifer had gotten out of the car, stood by the mailbox, arms crossed, waiting. "What do you want from me?" David finally asked. "Nothing," I said. "That's the point. I don't want anything except to be left alone, to live in my house, to make my own decisions, to be treated like I'm still alive instead of like I'm already a ghost." And if we try to force guardianship, to declare me incompetent, go ahead. Try. You'll lose. I've made sure of that. And you'll also lose me. Completely. I'll change my number. Move if I have to. You'll never see me again. His face crumpled. For a second, I saw him at 8 years old, coming home from school, crying because the other kids had teased him, running into Martha's arms, sobbing into her shoulder. I don't want that, he whispered. Then don't make me choose. Don't make me protect myself from my own son. What about the house? The deed transfer? Stays. Non-negotiable. This house goes back to the land when I die. That's final. But I'm your son. Don't I deserve? Deserve? The word came out harder than I meant it. You deserve what we taught you, what we showed you about love and family and sacrifice. You got a childhood full of that. You got every advantage we could give you. You got our time and our money and our attention. You got a father who never left, who never gave up on you. Even now, even after last night, you've got that. That's what you deserve. That's what you got. I stood up, went to the sink, looked out at the snowy backyard, the bird feeder I'd filled this morning, the oak tree Martha and I planted the year David was born. 41 years old now, massive, strong. Your mother and I didn't have much, I said, but what we had, we shared. With you, with each other, with people who needed it. We didn't hold back waiting for a return on investment. We just loved. Freely. Completely. We thought we'd taught you that. You did, David said. His voice broke. You did. I forgot. Somewhere along the way, I forgot. I turned around. He was crying. Really crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen last night. Real grief. Real recognition. Then remember, I said. That's all I want. Remember who taught you. Remember what we sacrificed. Remember that the house you wanted so badly represents every choice we made to put you first. And ask yourself, when did you last put anyone first? When did you last sacrifice anything for love? He couldn't answer. Didn't try. We sat there in silence. The clock ticking. The snow falling. The coffee getting cold in the pot. Finally, he stood. I should go. Jennifer's waiting. David, I called as he reached the door. He stopped. Didn't turn around. I love you. I always have. I always will. But love doesn't mean letting you treat me like I don't matter. It means expecting better. From both of us. He nodded. Opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Then, he was gone. The door closed. The house settled back into quiet. I watched through the window as he walked to his car. Watched him talk to Jennifer. Her face went from angry to confused to something else. Something I couldn't read from this distance. They sat in the car for a long time, arguing probably, or planning, or maybe just processing. Then they drove away. The snow covered their tire tracks within minutes. I spent the rest of the day alone, cleared the driveway, fixed the porch light, made soup for dinner, Martha's recipe, split pea with ham. The house smelled like it used to on winter Sundays. Warm, safe, home. The phone didn't ring. Not once. I'd expected that. Expected days of silence while David figured out his next move. While Jennifer convinced him I was bluffing or crazy or manipulatable. But that was okay. I'd meant what I said. Every word. The house was mine until I died. Then it was the earth's. David would inherit nothing except the knowledge that his parents had loved him enough to teach him the hardest lesson, that you can't take what was never meant to be owned. 3 days passed, then a week. New Year came and went. I watched the ball drop alone with a glass of Martha's wine. The good stuff. From France. I toasted her. Toasted the house. Toasted the years we'd had and the years I had left. January was brutal. Snow every few days. Temperature below zero for a week straight. I kept the heat at 68. Wore sweaters indoors. Burned wood in the fireplace. The house creaked and settled like it always had. Like it was alive. Breathing with me. Bob came over twice. We watched football. Didn't talk much. He knew something had happened but didn't pry. That was Bob. Present but not pushy. Martha had loved that about him. Said he was proof that men could be kind without being weak. On January 19th, the doorbell rang. Late afternoon. Almost dark. I'd been reading. One of Martha's old mysteries. She'd read it 3 times. Left notes in the margins. Ridiculous at one plot twist. Finally, at another, I opened the door expecting Bob. Or maybe solicitors. Definitely not David. But there he was. Alone this time. No Jennifer, no car running. Just my son on the porch in a heavy coat, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside. Let him in. He'd lost weight. Looked older, worn. "Coffee?" I asked again. "Please." We sat at the kitchen table. The same spots as last time. The coffee was fresh. I'd just made it. Habit. Always have coffee ready. Martha's rule. "I've been thinking," David started, "about what you said. About what Mom said. About all of it." I didn't respond. Just waited. "Jennifer and I are separating," he said. "Temporarily. Maybe permanently. I don't know yet." That surprised me. Because of this? Because of a lot of things. But this was part of it. She couldn't understand why I wouldn't fight you. Why I wouldn't pursue guardianship. Why I wouldn't try to overturn the deed transfer. He wrapped his hands around the coffee mug. I told her what you said, about memory, about sacrifice, about putting people first. She said, I was being manipulated, that you'd played me, that I was weak for giving in. What did you say? I said maybe I was, but maybe being strong meant admitting when I was wrong, when I'd become someone I didn't want to be. He looked up at me, eyes red. I've been going through old photos, from when I was a kid, from before Mom got sick. I found this one, from my 10th birthday. He pulled out his phone, showed me. I remembered the day, the photo. David, grinning at the camera holding a new bicycle. Red, 10 speed. He'd wanted it for months. We couldn't afford it. Not really. But Martha had picked up extra tutoring jobs. I'd worked overtime for 6 weeks. We'd made it happen. Because that's what you did. I never knew you worked overtime for that bike. David said, I thought you just bought it. Never occurred to me that it cost you anything. That was the point. We didn't want you to feel guilty. We wanted you to feel loved. But I should have known, should have asked, should have paid attention to what you were giving up for me. He put the phone away. I'm sorry, Dad. For last night. For Christmas. For the last few years, really. For treating you like you were in the way, instead of the reason I had any of this in the first place. The words hung there. Simple. True. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to be a start. I appreciate that, I said. The house, he continued. The deed transfer. I'm not asking you to change it. I understand why you did it, why Mom wanted you to. It's right. It's what should happen. I want you to know I get it now. I see it. Okay. And I want to be better. Want to be the son you raised instead of the asshole I became. I don't know if that's possible, if I've gone too far, but I want to try. I looked at him, really looked, at the man he was. at the boy he'd been, at the potential still there underneath the entitlement and fear. It's possible, I said, but it takes time and work and showing up, not just saying you'll change. Actually changing, I know, and it means treating me like I'm still here, still alive, still your father. Not a problem, not a burden, a person. I know. We finished our coffee in silence. It wasn't comfortable yet, wasn't healed, but it was honest. That was something. When he left, he hugged me. Quick, awkward, but real. I'll call you, he said. Not to ask for anything, just to talk, to check in, to be your son. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. Even knowing he might fail, might fall back into old patterns, might disappoint me again, I still meant it. Because that's what fathers do. We hope. We give chances. We love even when it's hard. The door closed. I stood in the empty house, in the quiet, in the home Martha and I had built. That I was protecting. That would eventually return to the earth and become something wild and beautiful again, just like she'd wanted, just like it should be. Outside, the snow started falling again. Big flakes. Perfect and temporary. I watched them accumulate on the oak tree, on the bird feeder, on the roof of the house that was mine, for now, for however long I had left. And for the first time since Martha died, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness exactly, but rightness. The sense that I'd done what needed doing, said what needed saying, protected what needed protecting. The phone rang an hour later. David, I picked up. Hey, Dad, he said. Just that. Nothing more. Hey, son, I said back. We talked for 20 minutes. About nothing important. About the snow. About Bob's new knee replacement. About a book David was reading. Small talk. Normal talk. Father and son talk. When we hung up, I sat in Martha's chair, the one with the embroidered cushion, the one she'd loved, the one that still held the shape of her after all these years. I did it, I said out loud. To her, to the house, to the memory of us. I stood my ground. Like you said, he chose. He chose right. No answer came, just the house settling, the clock ticking, the snow falling outside. But I felt her there anyway, in the walls we'd painted together, in the floors we'd refinished, in the kitchen where she'd cooked 1,000 meals, in the bedroom where she died holding my hand, whispering, "Don't let him make you small." I hadn't. I'd stayed exactly my size, taken up exactly the space I deserved, loved without shrinking, gave without depleting. That was the lesson. The one Martha had tried to teach David, the one I'd finally taught him myself. That love means boundaries. That family means respect. That inheritance isn't just property, it's values passed down through sacrifice and truth. David would never own this house, would never renovate it or sell it or fill it with his own family. But he'd inherited something more valuable. The knowledge of what his parents had given, the memory of what love looked like when it was real, the understanding that some things matter more than real estate. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. I stood up, went to the window, watched the snow cover the world in white. Clean, new, temporary, but beautiful. Tomorrow I'd call Bob, make plans to watch the playoffs, maybe invite him for dinner, make Martha's pot roast, keep living, keep choosing, keep being exactly who I was, in exactly the place I belonged. The house creaked around me, old bones settling, but strong, still standing, still home. I smiled, poured another cup of coffee, sat back down with Martha's book, read her notes in the margins, laughed at her commentary, felt her presence in every word. This was enough. This was everything. This was home. And no one could take that from me. Not anymore. Not ever again. If you liked this story, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to more stories, click on the window on the right. Thank you for being with us.